thank you very much for coming. This is our first session after Easter break.
Sanjay! My man. Take it away. Hello.
A lot of people who this is their first time at a regular lodge event, the Astrological Lodge of London. So welcome. And this is the first time Pandit Sanjay Rath is going to be speaking for the Astrological Lodge of London. And very briefly, for people who have no idea about the lodge and what they do, I am going to bore you with like literally a minute about the introduction to the lodge. It was set up by Helena Blavatsky in 1872, around then, along with a whole host of other people. And at some point it split up, and Annie Besant from Adyar in Chennai, in India, was their main collaboration, which is where all the branches of the Theosophical Society of England, in the world are. Theirs was the main branch. And their philosophy was very, very open. It's about self-transformation. It is totally about unity of consciousness. And in some ways, it's interesting that she adopted, or rather, I was told by Kim Farnell, the president of the lodge, who's written a book on the Astrological Lodge of London and its history, that Jiddu Krishnamurti was instrumental and very one of the core sort of leaders for the Theosophical Society. And most of you are familiar with Jiddu Krishnamurti, right? Yeah, it's funny how the universe has coincidences, because a friend of mine just in America, whom I grew up with, mentioned that was her great uncle. So very close. So and she's doing research in meditation. So there are no coincidences. The lodge is an offshoot of founded by Alan and Bessie Leo. And Bessie Leo was the first president of the Astrology Lodge. At the time, it was called the Theosophical Lodge. And eventually they sort of, took their own way into astrology with the help of Alan Leo, Charles Carter, and few others. As everything, it has a great lineage, and that's where the Eastern philosophies and religion kind of come together, because Pandit Sanjay Rath also has a great lineage. It's Shri Achyutanada Das, who was a 16th century scholar, seer from Orissa, which is where Panditji is from. And amongst all, we have the Gemini scholars here, including his wife Sarbani Rath, who's also a Gemini scholar from his tradition. So, and there's no better person to speak about one of my most favorite topics, the Eastern philosophy, and including the Atmakaraka, which I'm sure over the years people who are regulars at the lodge have, kind of heard me bang on about the Atmakaraka and the king of the chart. So without much ado, please welcome Pandit Sanjay Rath.
Thank you for your warm welcome. I've been looking forward to this day to be speaking to all of you at the lodge, and we have a beautiful topic to talk about: the soul. Now, the soul is an English word. When there was a French expert who says that the Hindus don't have an equivalent for the soul. What exactly is the soul? When I say the soul, what do the English think? What is soul? Yeah, go ahead. Anybody? What do you think is the soul? I mean, you have been coming to TS, you have been studying philosophy. So what is the soul that you think? I mean, I need to understand. Yeah, yes.
The consciousness of a person that exists both before and after death.
Correct. Very correct. The consciousness is ingrained. That consciousness is what we call light, is it not? That is the light. So that's what we call the Atman. Atman is like a light. The word used is Atman. At from At, the self. So it is the self which is awakening to itself. So that is the Atman. Now, the way the Eastern philosophies know the Atman is, they say that the karma is associated with the Atman. Now, karma simply means action at a very lower level. At a higher level, karma has much more. It has desire, it has what we call fruits of actions, it has knowledge. So karman is associated with the Atman. So we need to first understand that we are actually spirits or souls having a material experience. How many of you agree with that? Most of you do, is it? Thank you. Okay, now if you don't, then you need to ask yourself, what happens after death? I mean, do you just dissolve into nothing? You don't, because if you think you do that, read a book called Life After Death. There was one Swami called Abhedananda of the Ramakrishna Mission. So in India, you ask anybody, do you think there is ghosts, there are spirits after death? Even a fool will say, of course it is there. I have heard my grandfather say. There are ghosts, we become ghosts after we die. And this ghost is bhut, the word used is bhut. And so they are frightening. You suddenly get frightened with your same grandparent who is dead now. So Thakur Ramakrishna told him, don't do your research over here. Go to London and do research. Because there the people don't believe. So if you can prove it to them, they will believe that there is a life after death. What happens to you after you die will depend upon the state of your soul. And that is called the state of the Atman. You as a being are totally responsible for your own soul. Nobody else is. You have come alone, you will leave alone. It's as simple as that. Now, while studying the soul, different philosophers came up with different ideas. They all agree on one thing. With deep meditation, they said that the soul is a spark of light. A tiny little spark. Like this, they said. You know, like your thumb. It's a tiny little spark near your heart. They said it is in the heart chakra. So the heart chakra is said to be on the left hand side. Now I have observed that in London and in America, many people say that the heart chakra is over here, in the center. They are wrong. That's not the heart chakra. That's the chest chakra. This is the chest, isn't it? I mean, where do you have your heart in the center? The heart is slightly on the side, left hand side. So people say, no, Sanjay, you are playing around. The heart chakra is right here. I mean, the whole thing. It's not. You as a soul are in your heart chakra. And this soul is of the size of the thumb, very tiny little fiber of light. But the Shankara and the other great teachers of the Hindu philosophies, they said that to know the Atman, you have to understand that it is not just one fiber of white light that you see in your deepest meditations. In your deepest meditations, when you reach that level of the rishis, what you will see is a tiny little fiber of white light. Like the filament of a lamp, like a lamp burning, what you're seeing is white light. Actually, it's not just one filament. There are 8 such tiny, tiny wires. And these 8 are tied around it like a core, you know. And these are 7 colors, and there is an 8th, which is black. So therefore, these 7 colors and the black light together are forming the white light. Now this is something coming at least a few thousand years back. And when did we get to know that light had 7 colors? And we always said light has 7 colors. But did you know that there is a color which we don't talk about called the dark energy, which was only recently discovered? So as science advances, we realize that the Eastern philosophies, we call them Eastern because they were recorded in the East. The West also had this knowledge, that there is some truth in this light, the 8 lights of the soul. And that's what we are going to examine today. And how this was incorporated in the subject called Jyotish. Vedic astrology is a Western name given for the subject. That's not the original Eastern name. The Eastern name is Jyotish. Jyoti means light. Jyotisha, Isha is God. So the light of God. To study these 8 lights is the essence of the subject. So to say that I am studying Vedic astrology and I don't agree on the soul or I don't know, well, we can agree, disagree, argue. But the idea is to start studying it. That there is a soul, that we have not come here by mistake. We are not just random creatures who just rain fell and the tree came up. It's not like that. We are passing through cycles of reincarnations, where there is right from the birth chart and the death chart. Did you know there's a death chart? I hope some of you are studying death charts also. I really love that subject of death charts. Maybe next time I'm with you, we'll talk of death charts. And of the birth chart, we get an idea of the karmas of the soul till now. What we should be examining is how this karma is going to manifest. What are the things this soul will like? What is his nature? This is the inner nature of the person, not the outer being that you are seeing from an ascendant. So the rishis call this the Karaka Lagna, the predominant ascendant of the soul. There's a whole subject for the soul and the study of the soul, the Karaka Lagna, the ascendant from the soul's viewpoint, the chart from the viewpoint of the soul. You may like something, but does your soul like it? A very peculiar conscience. When you like something, is it your soul that is liking it or your mind that is liking it, that has been trained in a certain way by going to a certain school or by some friends around you? Our likes, our dislikes, what is manifesting in our life, what is not going to manifest in our life, the soul has an important role to play in that. And we will divide this karma into 8 directions. You know, there are 8 directions that we use. The 4 cardinal, what we call kendra, and what do you use for kona? What is the English word for that?
Trine.
The trines, really? Okay, the trine directions, really? Not really. There are 4 kendras or 4 cardinal directions and 4 intermediate directions. 45 degrees, you know, those 45 degrees. So totally there are 8 directions for the soul. And these pipes of light are in these 8 directions. Each pipe has a role to play in our life. It controls one aspect of our life, a direction of our life. It tells us what, for example, the Atmakaraka. It's the king. The word used is king. It's not, it's more. It's the dominant thing. It's what we are. What are our tastes? What things we like. Amatya is the minister. What we like to work as. What kind of a work will I do? From a soul level, what can I excel in? What work can I take up that my soul force will be behind that work? How interesting. Rather than just looking at, say, the 10th house, or just looking at what is giving me money, income, to motivate me to work, Is everybody motivated by money? Does money really make you that good? A Mozart, do you think Mozart could have been motivated by money? It's impossible. When people excel in what they do, they go beyond normal, what you call normally human. That's a soul level push that's coming. So if every human being can quickly, from the childhood, we know, okay, this direction should be good for him, and push them in that direction, they will succeed. They will succeed like nothing else. If you only we knew which planet governed this particular soul level push. What about spirit? What do you believe in? Do you believe in one God? Why does everybody not believe in one God? Or oneness of God? There's a difference between oneness of God and one God. You ask somebody who is from the Muslim world, he will say, I believe in Allah. There's one God and His name is Allah. So he believes in one God, but not in oneness of God. You see the difference? A person who believes in oneness of God will believe as much in the Holy Father as in Christ. They're all one. That is called Shaiva. The concept of Shaiva is there is oneness. Advaita, the word. So what causes a person to truly believe in that? So that's how we get to know. That's the Bhratri, the next level. So like that we have different levels. From a soul level, what do you think is, what kind of a partner are you looking for? And are you destined to meet your soul level partner? How can you answer such a question if I do not know how to look at the soul? Don't you think it's something worth examining? Trying to at least get into the subject. What is this thing called soul? What is this Atmas? And that's what we are going to look into. This Atman or the souls, the 8 directions, they are bound by ropes of karma. Karma is nothing but ropes. They bind you. You are forced. How many of us have the courage to walk around without clothes? Can we walk around over here without clothes? No. We can't do that. What causes us to have this feeling of shame? We feel ashamed, is it not? Is it good to feel ashamed or is it bad to feel ashamed? Baby, little kids can run around without clothes, is it not? Look at their innocence. What have we lost that they have? Innocence. The innocence of Venus. Venus is the most innocent of them. So, this is what we call Dara. Can we get that innocence back? Is there a method by which I can get that back? Some people try it. And they are called the naturalists. But we laugh at them. Some of us laugh at them. I am not judgmental. I try to understand and I talk to them to understand what exactly are they trying. Why are they running around the beach without clothes? Then when they tell me that they are trying to go back to nature, I said, well, that's a good idea. They're trying to lose that concept of the apple and Adam. It's interesting. So, how different souls are looking at God. Their view of reaching God is to get back the innocence, is it not? But that's one way. So let's see from a chart. Can I, by looking at a chart, see what impels a person spiritually? Like that. What are these 8 directions of karmas that bind us, that are pulling us? We need to study that a little more. Are you with me? Good. what is the Atman? Here is a nice Sanskrit shloka from a book called the Brihat Aranyaka Upanishad. That which is the witness of vision cannot be seen. It's a very complicated phrase. That which is the witness of vision cannot be seen. That which is the hearer of hearing cannot be heard. That which is the thinker of thought cannot be thought of. That which is the knower of knowledge cannot be known. That is your Atman, that is your real self. And that is within all. Everything else but this is perishable. So, what are we talking about as the Atman? The concept of the Atman is that it is not perishable, it is imperishable. From there comes the concept of bhasma. You know, you take a piece of wood and you burn it. Finally, what is left? Some dust is left, right? That dust is that which stays after everything is destroyed. It represents the Atman of the wood. So did you understand the concept? We are looking for that which will stay after you are to dust. You know that famous phrase the Christians say? Dust to dust, ashes to ashes. After you become dust to dust and ashes to ashes, that which will remain is called the Atman. And that is nothing but a spark of light, a tiny little spark. But to that spark is wedded a mind. I'm using the word mind very loosely over here, we call it the manas. So the Atman and the manas are different. They are two separate entities. The mind is not the same as the soul. The mind is different from the soul. It is like a software put in a computer. The soul is the energy. It is the life force. It is that which is alive. That which causes the body to become alive. But the mind is what is being used for accessing all that is around. Without the mind, the soul cannot see. So, the Atman is like the person sitting in the back of a cab. He has no control over the cab. He's sitting in the cab. This journey is a journey of life. He will sit in the cab. He has requested the cab driver to take him to this place, that place, that place, that place. The cab driver is the mind. Wherever the mind wants to go, it will go. You barely have any control over the mind. The whole thing about meditation, prayer, is all about different means to try to control the mind by enforcing certain discipline on it. Even fasting is trying to push the mind to obey the will of man. So basically, what are we doing? We are having different kinds of spiritual discipline only to affect the mind. But does it affect your soul? That is the question. How can we say that if I fast, it is good for my soul? So these are questions that we need to put. You know, any spiritual practice, is it really good for the soul or is it just for the mind? But it's good to have a disciplined mind, but these are questions, we need to answer subsequently. That which is most auspicious, Shiva, and true, Satya, is this Atman. This soul is called Shiva, most auspicious, because that is your real self. And that is the only truth, for that is imperishable, everything else will perish. So how is it How is this so? The word Atmana, the simplest definition of Atma is self, and the self can be defined from various angles when considered apart with other elements. So there are multiple ways of defining the self. The mind is the self. It is your mind. The body is this is my body. So the body is the self. But all this self is perishable. The self which is not perishable is the soul. So Atmana is an instrument of the Atma, is in the compound form. So we need to compound the soul with something else for our study and experimentation. I cannot study the soul independently. I take the soul and I take the mind and I put it together. What do I get? I get a spirit. When you die, your spirit leaves your body. It's not just the soul going away. Your mind is also associated with that soul. Because the mind is associated with the soul remembers who he is, what his name was. For example, when somebody is dead, have you ever done planchet? Anybody has done planchet? Do you know what's a planchet? You have done planchet. Okay. Planchet is a means of communicating with the dead. Okay, when you do planchet, you start communicating with the dead. And then you can ask them their names, you can ask them other things, and you can have a communication with them. What happens here is you realize that the mind is there with the soul. The soul has a mind. That's how he knows his name, he remembers his past. If you die, will you immediately forget what happened to you? Who you were? What do you think? You'll remember, right? Don't you think that when you go to bury somebody, that person's soul, spirit is out there somewhere? Yeah. Seeing all the family over there. Sometimes family members can even feel the spirit. So at some stage, the soul, the Atman and the mind have to be separated. And then this Atman, according to the Hindu philosophy, this Atman then goes through a process of finding another mind and is put inside another body. That is how the reincarnation is happening. This separation of the mind from the soul is the grace of God. Otherwise, you could be loitering around like a ghost in the planet, sent to different lokas, to narkas, to various kinds of hells. There are 28 hells defined in Vedic, in the Hindu systems. I don't know Christianity. How many do you have? One?
90.
91 hell? Maybe.
But there's meant to be 9 levels. There's a philosophy that in Dante's philosophy is nine levels, yeah. In
Hindu philosophy, we don't have hells as such, but we have dark worlds. There are 7 talas which are dark worlds, but we have hellish worlds called narkas. 28 of them. And at the time of death, if Mars is in the 7th house, at the time of death, in the death chart, if Mars is the 7th house, the person is surely going to hell. That's Vedic astrology.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Because the cops are there to take you.
Makes sense.
Mars is the cop. The cops are sitting there. 7th house is the house of going.
That's right.
Right. So if Mars is there, the cops are there to take you. You're going to hell. And depending upon the 28 constellations, whichever constellation Mars was in, that's where you're going. And I did a whole workshop on this in the Shivananda Ashram in California. They were quite shocked to see the results. So we tried to find out, where did Adolf Hitler go? We found it. These are very, very interesting concepts of where you will go after death. And the advantage of seeing this is we get to know that, okay, there is a life after death. And in this life after death, I need to understand my soul and to see what I can do about it now so that I don't have to see a bad life after death. Yeah.
Mars in the 7th, are you talking from a Vedic perspective? In other words, it would be Mars in the 8th approximately.
No, it will still be 7th even in the...
23 degree displacement.
You take the whole sign, whole house.
He's talking the whole sign.
Even if you move the ascendant by 23 degrees, Mars will also go forward by 23 degrees.
Ah.
I'm good in math. Yeah, I topped my class. In fact, I had a 99 star percentile in SAT. So you see the point here is, you see, these are very interesting things we learn. And then when we try it out, you know, for example, a terrorist was hanged in India. And I checked, okay, what time did he die? I request, you know, to get the date and time, and you folks, wow. I mean, they didn't check with any astrologer before when they're hanging him. Bullseye. Shocking, you know, when you see one chart, two chart, 10 charts, it's working. Yes, please.
When you define death, because these days we have machines to keep people's bodies alive. So when does the person die if they're on a machine?
Correct.
Recently, no, he's right. Recently there was this thing on the paper. Somebody who was in coma for 27 years came back.
Yes.
Next year we should talk on this. You got a very good point. Next year we should be talking on death, and when will death come and how will it come. I remember those beautiful words, you know, of that French freedom fighter. He never shot a bullet. Death will come and she will have your eyes. And when he committed suicide, right? So strange, very, very strange about death. We spend years trying to study it. That's in Germany. Years we spend. But this is more interesting. Let's talk about living and how we are going to... No, he's got a point, but we'll take that up.
Yeah.
But without that, that's where the question of the soul comes. Otherwise, how are we bothered about the soul? We're living a nice life. Why are we bothered about the soul? Because what will happen after death? We've seen parents die. We've seen grandparents die. So naturally, there's a feeling. Smashan Vairagya. It's only at the place of death that we feel that sorrow and we question what is the meaning of life. Smashan is the place of death. It's at that time we question. Otherwise, we're just laughing, enjoying life, you know. Death is very important. Without that, there will be no religion in this world without death. All religions have started from the question of death. He's right. So we will take that. But Atma Yoga, let's come back. Now the Hrid Padma, Hridaya Padma or the Hrid Padma is the heart lotus that I was talking about. And that is slightly to the left, it's slightly smaller. It's on the heart chakra. Right on the heart, it's here. This chakra right over here, upside down, is called the Anahata Chakra, the chest chakra. Translators make the mistake of calling the chest chakra the heart chakra. It's an error in the translation. Heart chakra is called Hrid. Hrid means heart. Anahata, that which cannot be destroyed, that which cannot be attacked. You cannot defeat him. That is the Anahata, the undefeated one. He sits right here in the Anahata. And we call him Vishnu. He's Sarva Vyapakesha. He's all over the place. He's the one connecting everybody to everything. He's Vishnu. He's right here. They say the Paramatma, no, the small tiny little spark of God is somewhere out here. Whereas you are here. You are different from God. From that concept of duality. See, now immediately while talking, I have started talking of duality over here. Did you see that? And then we talk of what is Shiva, knowledge. He is here, right on the head. So what is yoga? Yoga is the soul traveling every day to the Guru and coming back. That's all there is to knowledge. You go up, go over here, talk to your Guru and come back. So this soul, is it going to go there or is just going to keep loitering or maybe even go down? The soul goes down, you know that, right? Why does the soul go down? Because he needs to have babies. He's got karmas to have babies. So he needs to go down. He goes down to Brahma. And Brahma says, okay, now you need to go produce some babies for me. He goes further down. There's a Kamadeva over there, in this, near the genitals. And the Kamadeva tells him, okay, I'll find a beautiful spouse for you. And that's how he produces babies. So all that thing is going down. This soul, when it is going up, is going to go towards learning, jnana, knowledge. And therefore that's going to get moksha. But to know those directions, we need to know whether the soul is going to seek those directions or is not bothered about it. In the evening, do you want to attend Sanjay Rath's lecture at TS or are you dying to go to the pub out there? What makes you come here and not go there? That's what we need to know. By looking at a chart, can I see what is impelling this? Will it happen or not? That is the soul. Hrid Padma is the heart lotus to its left, fully enclosed by the Anahata canopy. So this little heart lotus is like this. And it is fully enclosed. You see that? Look at that image over there. That is the picture of the Anahata, the chest. Do you see the planets around it? There are 8 petal lotuses. Which is the light?
Yeah, the middle.
The middle one there.
Okay, you see these planets around it, right? There are 8 petals over here, as you can see. You have the Sun in the eastern direction. You have Venus in the southeast, Mars in the south. You have the nodes over here, basically we call the dragon's head. Then we have Saturn in the west, the Moon in the northwest, Mercury in the north, and Jupiter in the northeast. It's very interesting that these 8 planets, not really planets, 7 planets and 1 node, had these 8 directions. They rule these directions. So people who are having knowledge of astrology know that these directions are lorded by these planets. But these directions are not only physical directions, they are also directions of the soul. We need to know as to how these directions are affecting my soul, because these directions are coming from the chest. My soul is here. So when my soul comes towards the chest, it's going to affect me. For example, you know about the 12 signs of the zodiac, right? You all know of 12. How did you get 12 signs? Why are there not 13 signs in the zodiac or 11 signs? Because mathematically you have derived that the sun and moon come together once in every 30 days. So we take 30 days divided by the whole circle of 360 and that's how we get 12 signs. Is it not? Mathematical derivation of 12 signs. But where else are the 12 petals? These 12 petals are actually in the heart chakra, in this chest chakra. You see the outward 12 petals. They are in the chest chakra and these 12 petals are the 12 signs. So right out here I have some kind of a flower, astral flower, which is pointing downwards, where there are 12 petals. And these 12 petals are the 12 signs. It's like a canopy. And these signs, the entire astrology is actually taking place right at this level. So the 12 outer petals are defining the months and the years. So the entire timekeeping is happening at this 11. The 8 inner petals have the 8 karmic variables in the 8 sansaras. Sansara means worldly directions. One inner petal for the Ishta Paramatma. This center point is your God point. The God has all the directions. You don't have. And that's what we call the pillar of light. There's a pillar of light. See, for the soul, this looks like a big pillar. Now, Varahamira, he was one of the great astrologers of his time. What he stated, the minute and subtle Atman soul, immersed in the Paramatman, Supreme Soul. See, it's immersed. So the heart is immersed in this big canopy. They are separate. Is situated in the heart lotus, Hrit Pundarika or Hrit Padma. The Atman can be realized through constant practice by a steadfast mind. So mental discipline is required. Meditation is required. Contemplation on that soul is required. Then only can you realize that soul. Such a person attains the nature of him who he constantly seeks, just as a young woman are mentally attached to the beloved. I mean, that example is not a very nice example. I don't know what he was trying to mean by that, but I mean, just as he says, young women get obsessed, oh, he's so handsome, he's so this, he's so that. So also you will get obsessed with the Lord. When you really go that deep to the soul, you will have an obsession with God. So this is self-realization, is God. You can have God realization after self-realization. Is it the same thing? I mean, what would you say? Is God realization the same as self-realization?
Yes.
Should be.
Yes.
Just be the spark of the same.
So as soon as you realize yourself, you realize God.
Unite with God.
There are many self-realized people in this planet. Many, quite a few. So many. Many people say that so many of them are. Have they realized God?
For me, it should be the same thing once I realize, because we're part of that bunch.
See, there is something, yeah.
But there could be then an argument raised that the self-realized people who we say that you're self-realized, what God is for them may not be the same because we're trying to define God, and I think that's maybe can be a dirty territory where we're trying to define God.
Are you the same as your Guru?
No, but I'm a reflection of the Guru.
Right. So you're a reflection of God, but not God. You see, the problem in Advaita is you are not allowed to have oneness with Guru. I believe in Advaita. And I try to understand it. It's not easy. You are not allowed to have oneness. So if you are not allowed to have oneness with Guru, because that boundary is very important. It's called the sacred boundary. There have to be boundaries. The master is the master, you are you. You cannot be one with the master. You are always a step below. You have to respect the master. We in India are very clear on this. The Guru is the Guru. So, therefore, in pure Advaita practice, you can have a reflection of the master. You are supposed to be the reflection. And as much of the reflection as you can be. Such that one day you don't exist. So what happens if you don't exist? Only the reflection exists. So only the Guru exists. Only God exists. You see the point? Understand Advaita. One day you will not exist. So your existence will just vanish. Only the reflection will exist. The knowledge will exist. That you were there will exist. That's the knowledge of you. but that's only a reflection. So interesting, huh? How the Advaita approach is very humble approach. Beautiful approach, is it not? So now think about it. Atma Yoga is the union of the Jivatman and the Paramatman. So the Jivatman is different from the Paramatman. Why? Is it the same? Are the attributes of God the same as you? For example, can you have bilocation? Can you be at two places at the same time? God can. Jesus could. To have the individual, you have oneness with the Paramatman, so then you will realize your inner, because the Jivatman is having actually the potential. You have the potential. When you become one, then you have the tremendous power. For example, you may have a memory like that of an elephant. You could access hundreds of books like this. Interesting, is it not? So that is Atma Yoga. That is the power of Atma Yoga. And that is what we intend to see if it can be achieved or not. Does your soul have the power to attain that? What do you need to do to attain that? But if I don't know what is the color of my soul also, how am I even going to go forward in this? Do you understand? So good. So let's take this a step forward and see. The Jivatman expands through the Pancha Tattva, the five tattvas. We have five tattvas of the five elements, and the luminaries, and the eighth thing called desire. So how many elements are there? Five. You all know these elements, right? They are fire, they are water, air, pardon? Ether, and earth. Okay. And then the Chinese, instead of ether, what do they have? They have wood as an element. If you see, the philosophies are not too far from each other. They have wood instead of the ether. And what are the two luminaries? The sun and the moon. The sun is the light of the day and moon is the light of the night. And what is the last thing? It's called desire. Desire is said to be an element. So these eight are called Shiti, earth, Apa, water, Anala, fire, Vayu, air, Akash is ether, Surya is the sun, Soma is the moon, and Yajamana is the desire within the being. So desire is a part of the soul. And from where did desire come? No, that is the most difficult question. What was the first desire? Nobody has an answer to that. You see, no philosophy gives me an answer to what was the first desire, but where did desire come from in the first place? So the only answer we have is some stories like Adam. Adam had a desire for the apple. That's how desire came. The first desire. Why did man have desire at all? But that is the biggest problem actually. The desire, you will observe, is the biggest problem. Because that is not well defined. And therefore we have 8 forms of the self called the Jivatman. So the Jivatman is existing in 8 different forms. And these 8 forms are pulling in 8 different directions, and that is the conflict within the person. Imagine you have something in the center and there are 8 directions with 8 different tubes, and each tube is pulling in its direction. Isn't that going to be conflict? So every